Neil Quinn, and I was elected moderator at the March town meeting, and that means that I remain moderator until the next town meeting. So that's why I'm up here. I will read the... Troy tapped on it before.
That doesn't look like your usual 12-year-old that knows how to work these things. So the issue before us is to see if the voters of Guilford Town School District will vote to authorize an Australian ballot vote to take place on the March 5, 2013 town meeting day for the purpose of deciding whether or not the Guilford Town School District will send its 7th and 8th grade students to the Brattleboro Area Middle School. What is your pleasure? So this is where the school board would normally say you'd like to move the motion, place it on the floor.
I'd like to move the motion, place it on the floor.
There, that's good. And would anyone on the board like to speak to it?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess since I said that, I'll be the second.
Oh, good. Would anyone like to speak to it from the board?
Hi everyone, good night, good evening, thanks for coming. You might want to say good night to me. Thank you. Use the mic.
Relax and talk.
Thank you very much. We're here tonight because we want to decide if we want to do this issue that we have on the board as an Australian ballot or not. The reason it came up in the school board was because we were looking at different ways to reach the entire town on this issue because we thought that they all should have a say-so. It's really, the Australian ballot is really not the issue for the school board. It's more what do the town voters want to do. We had some wonderful people come into our last meeting when we presented this to tell us some of the good and bad of Australian ballots, and some of it was very eye-opening for me personally and for other people on the board, so we appreciate that. We just want to make sure that as many people are informed about this issue as possible because we want to do what's best for all of the Guilford children, and so we need your help. So whether you decide to do an Australian ballot or whether you decide not to, really we're going to do the best budget that we can and go from there, and we're trying to inform everyone of this issue as much as possible. So thank you.
So is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Yes.
Barbara Hunt. I guess maybe I'm a little dense about this, but if we decide to have an Australian ballot at town meeting or not, does that mean if we say no, we're not going to have an Australian ballot at town meeting, does that end this thing, or does the school board at that time make the decision on whether we're going to send the 7th and 8th graders to Brattleboro?
Well, the school board's going to come up with their budget, which they feel is going to serve our children the best. And then the Australian ballot part of it is just, do you want everyone to vote on that, or do you want to, no, this is not going to just go away if you say no to Australian ballot? Does that make sense?
So it will be on the floor.
Katie?
So,
sorry.
just to kind of follow up with Barb, so if the Australian ballot vote is no, then it will become an article that will be presented on town meeting day that will be voted on the floor during town meeting day.
Correct.
So the issue doesn't die, it's just the manner in
The
which
issue
it's voted
doesn't die.
changes.
It's all based, the reason for the whole Australian ballot is give the whole entire town, working folk, the whole order, to vote on whether to just send the middle school to bands. That's the only issue. It's not the budget, it's just the issue of the 7th and 8th grade going to bands. The budget will be determined at town meeting just like every other year for the last 100 and some years. So That doesn't change. The only thing that's being voted on the Australian ballot is whether the town wants to send their children to Vegas.
Yes, Calvin.
If we decide to have a private ballot or Australian ballot, that would mean there would be no discussion of the article on the floor at all. And so I was wondering if
Actually, that rule has been changed. So even though it's being voted by Australian ballot, there can be discussion. There can be no action, no amendments, no anything like that. But a couple years ago, that was changed so that even though the Australian ballot is happening in the same room, it's possible for it to come up usually under other business.
You could have all the discussion you want on town meeting about it. So the people that,
only if someone puts it as a topic of discussion on the floor. Right, maybe it would show up in other businesses. But anyway, my question is, how would one form their voting opinion at the last minute with the most up-to-date information? If we didn't,
we're trying to keep money out of it. Money's neutral.
I don't care about money. How would I find out more information about
Come
why we
come to the school board meetings, and we've been giving out all the information. We had BAMS come out, give a presentation. We've had Guilford Middle School come out and give a presentation. We've had many meetings about it. This isn't,
Well, can I modify my question?
Sure.
Do you see anything between now and the time of our decision at town meeting that might influence my decision?
Almost every meeting from now in town meeting, we will be discussing.
But I think what he's asking, you're asking if we're going to have direct meetings just for this topic to inform people?
I want to find out if I'm going to miss out on some important information if I elect to use the Australian ballot system, just because I won't have heard about it. It won't come up.
I would highly suggest you come to the school board meetings. We've been talking about it for a number of meetings. This isn't the first time.
Okay, thanks.
But I believe that to be true. If people do not come to the meetings, if they don't go to the website, if they don't read the minutes, they're not going to know the details. And therefore, by voting yes or no, there could be a lot of people in this town that vote without knowing what's going on. So the best way to get informed is to come to the meetings.
Go ahead.
I'm Steve Redmond, I'm Guilford Center. I've been to the meetings and been part of the discussions. It's been frequently repeated at these meetings that you said you wanted to keep money out of it. It's been constantly repeated that the costs involved are going to be the same for one or the other. But no hard figures have ever been presented. And I think that since it will be actually a budgetary consideration, I would like to hear debate about the merits of this move in financial terms, which is what the budget's about, during town meeting. I also think that a lot of people can't attend school meetings, just as the reason supposedly for an Australian ballot is that a lot of people work and don't have time. Well, same thing can be said of the school board meeting. So to berate people that they haven't been to the school board meeting is wrong, I think. Another point is, I think that elected officials are elected as representatives. That's one of the things that we do, and we ask other people to consider ideas for us. That's why we vote for them. So I think that it's understandable that not everybody can attend school board meetings. Just as understandable that not everybody can attend the Senate in Washington. We do elect people to do stuff for us. So I think it is a financial concern. One of the concerns I have back financially is the effect on the lower school. If we remove 10% of our student population to Brattleboro Middle School, we will still not move our fixed costs, for instance, heat, our maintenance costs, many other costs will not move with those students. And I've been told in general terms that the costs are the same, but I believe that the people who are saying that are thinking in terms of cost per student. They compare a cost per student at Brattleboro and compare a cost per student at Guilford. But those costs do not follow if the students go there. We simply have 10% fewer students here. The other really important point, I think, is that outside funding, grants, etc., come to this school sometimes based on the number of students who are in this school. If we move them to Brattleboro, the same thing will happen. Brattleboro will have an increased level of competition for grants and will have increased student numbers, and Guilford will have less. So my big concern is not necessarily the financial side, but the financial effect of moving those students over there on Brattleboro's lower schools where we might have to cut programs to maintain the same budget. Therefore, I think this kind of thing should be debated on the floor at town meeting, because I think we need several hundred people's ideas and input on this. Thank you very much.
Or Katie, did you have something?
I was just going to see if perhaps the school board could include a piece in the town report that would hit everybody, that would provide as much information about the issue as possible.
Good idea.
And
Don?
by state statute, the board will be required to hold an informational meeting a certain number of days before this vote. You have to do that. And that meeting would have to be announced as and dedicated specifically to this topic. So it's what's called a public issue, which means you have to do that. And that's a mechanism for dealing with the fact that by Australian ballot you don't have a discussion that leads to a vote. So that gives the voters a chance to come and query the school board and educate themselves about the issue.
Any?
That would be similar to a pre-town meeting solely on this issue.
Exactly.
Fred?
It seems this discussion is not germane to the question about which way to vote. That's the only business tonight, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why I'm kind of baffled. It has nothing, either you want an Australian ballot for this issue or not. That's the moral of the story. We can get into those long debates at a further date, but the real issue is, do you want Australian ballot for this decision?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Matt Martin. This is a question that relates to Australian ballot, not the concept of moving to middle school. Really just a question about process and timing. I've been to a couple of the meetings, and I think what I hear you saying is that you're wanting this vote to happen so that you can get a read on what the community feels on this issue.
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
I'm right on that.
Yes.
So then, regardless of whether we go Australian ballot or not, whether it's on the floor or Australian, then we're making that decision in March at town meeting. And we know the results one day after town meeting, typically, maybe that night late. But does that give you sufficient time to react to the public's liking or disliking of your plan? If you've already had the vote to fund the project on town meeting day, and you're not going to really know the results of what the community thinks on the issue until the day after. Am I understanding that correctly?
If it's Australian.
You're
ballot.
talking, are you worried about affecting the budget?
No, I'm just wondering about the information part. So I think what I'm imagining in my head is I'm going to go to pre-town meeting, and I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to go to town meeting, and I'm going to vote on your budget and approve it every year, like I do every year. And then the next day, you're going to find out whether or not I think the kids should go to NAMS.
Right.
After we've already made that. And am I understanding that correctly? Okay. So then,
If this floor decides Australian ballot is the way it wants to go.
okay. So then, just as a community member, I'd like to be able to have our input well in advance of the day that we vote on it. That'd be my druthers. And in terms of Australian ballot, I would just say what I said last week to the floor, which is I feel like part of the importance of any significant decision in a community is for people to be able to get out and talk about it, and not just raw numbers of votes. I think informed votes are more important than just raw numbers. And that's why in my limited time on the planet, I've yet to been swayed to vote yes to anything that will be voted by Australian ballot. That's a significant decision. So I throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on this method of voting? Hearing none, we will then vote on the motion to authorize an Australian ballot vote taking place on town meeting day for the purpose of deciding whether or not the town school district will send its 7th and 8th grade students to the Brattleboro area middle school. So if you're voting yes, you're voting to authorize the Australian ballot. If you're voting no, you are saying that we will be discussing the issue on the floor at town meeting. Is that correct? Go ahead.
I believe, I feel as though the moderator is reading more into the motion. It doesn't say that. It just says yes or no. You're predicting what the school board will do if this is voted down, and I don't agree with that. Just the way you just expressed it. They may decide after the vote not to bring it up at all.
That is true. No, in moderator school, they say try to make it clear, and maybe I made it less clear. But so anyway, all in favor of this motion? All right. Are there more people that would like paper ballot? We need 7 people to call for paper ballot. I see 7. So we will vote on this by paper ballot. I think all of you will have gotten your ballots. So we have the results of the voting. Yes, 26. No, 28. So the noes have it.
So what,
guess that's it. Is there any other business that anyone would like to bring up? This is a sort of a boilerplate thing that goes on here. No binding action can be taken in Article 2. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ellie Guilford from Lee Road, and I was just asking Neil about, with a no Australian ballot vote, how do we have the school board included in the agenda for town meeting so that it will be discussed at town meeting? Does the school board have to?
We can make an article.
That's what I'm asking, how to make it, yes. And is that naturally going to happen? Will that naturally happen, that you will make an article?
Or we can discuss it and just vote it amongst ourselves. The board has the right to vote on this issue.
There's nothing in the state law that says the voters have to vote on it.
Right.
We don't want to do that, but
Another
I
possibility.
would appreciate it.
To answer your
That's why we threw the Australian ballot out there.
another thing we can do, is it okay if I answer this? More to the point of your question, if you believe that the school board isn't going to do it, which they don't have to, you may petition to have an article to that effect placed on the town warrant, either as a floor vote or it would be a floor vote, yeah. It would be a floor vote.
It has to be a floor.
That was my
You
question.
can collect 80 signatures or whatever. You can do that with either the town or the school district. If the select board doesn't get an article, you can do the same thing with the town. So, and that causes the article definitely to appear.
Right.
And that's a procedure for bypassing the board if the voters decide to do it.
Thank you.
Anything? Yes, sir.
Jerry Smith. So the question then is, do we have your faith, can we have faith in you that will be on the warning? And that we, in the packet, we get in the mail that says this article will happen?
We have no idea. We have to sit down and discuss all this.
Do you? Because it sounds like all of us want to talk about it, at least the 28 who voted no. So I guess I would urge you to say that now, say that.
I'm in favor of communicating from the floor. That's the way we've always done it, and that's the way I'd like to see it happen, but I'm speaking for myself here.
Why wouldn't you?
I can't imagine there'd be a reason we wouldn't. But I mean, I just don't know all the legalities now. I'm not going to answer anything at this point, okay? Because I'm a little baffled by this right now, so I need to get a whole bunch more information before I even
Well, I don't want to be smart and cynical about this. But there's been several comments that you guys have elected us to make educated decisions, which you guys have, correct? By some individuals. So we also have reserved the right to vote on this amongst ourselves, the 5 board members. We can literally just decide whether this happens. The whole idea with the Australian ballot was to make sure that everybody in the town gets to vote on the issue. Now, the board must enter conversations on what direction, and I think we'll do it tonight, on which way we want to progress. Now, I think there's a majority of us that would like the town, obviously, to have more discussion and say over it, for sure. But I would encourage everybody to, and I've said this before, and some of us decide that we have been elected officials, but we trust in us that we'll make the right decisions. But when you're talking $2 million plus, I think it takes the town to decide on, what direction everybody would like to see. We're only 5 members of the town, so the more people that participate in our meetings is greatly appreciated. So when you guys say that you guys elect us, we appreciate that, but it also takes the whole community run the town. And I don't think the 5 members up on the board are going to make a big decision for the town, but just keep that in mind. When you say, you know, we don't have time for the meetings, well, some of us up here have families, all of us have families, all of us have jobs, some of us have multi-jobs. So I don't really want to hear about not coming to meetings.
And another way is if you're looking at our minutes in the website, and somebody else knows where all this stuff is, I'm not a computer person, but you can always email one of us with your feedback that we can bring to the board. Because one of the agenda items is always communications, whether it's email, face-to-face, or letter, so that we know, because we're representing you. We need your input. 3 of us don't have children in the school system right now on this board. So.
Anything else under other business? In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion we adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Thank you for coming. School board meeting in the library. Yeah, and the school board meeting's in the library in 2 minutes.
I'd like to call a meeting to order at 6:45. John, you would end up running. First thing we'll do is I'll have Penny read the
Honey, I have this thing right here. I see it.
the meeting rules.
Good evening, everybody. Get to listen to my voice a little longer. Rules for public participation at the Guilford Town School Board meetings. At the point of the meeting where groups and/or individual visitors are recognized, a representative of the group or an individual may address the board for 2 minutes on any topic of concern. If the subject being addressed requires a response from the board, the time of the board's response shall not be deducted from the speaker's time. As a result of comments or questions from the public, the chair may amend the agenda to address those concerns. During the meeting, after each agenda item is discussed by the board, the public will be allowed to address the board for 5 minutes. After all who wish to speak have done so, anyone wishing to make further comments will be allowed a second period of 5 minutes. Members of the public addressing the board will not be interrupted during their allotted time unless deemed out of order.
Any special groups? Any special reason why we're here? Cindy? Custodian bus contract? Okay. Anybody else?
I'm on the
Thank you.
agenda, right?
Yes.
So I'm not a special group, I'm not.
No.
You're on.
No.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for coming. Let's apply towards the agenda. What do we want to? Well, actually, we should. Ron, do you have anything you have to head out to? Make sure you're not here until.
By 7:30, there's a couple things I need to sign.
Why don't we do John and you? John, are you set or? Why don't we start off with Ron and then we'll go to John for reports?
So this is another early ed partnership contract. You have the preschools, and this is Sunflower Farm Preschool, Putney, where you apparently have Guilford students, lucky Guilford students. So as we have with all the preschools, we need signatures on that. And that allows you to count the average daily membership into your enrollment. You get reimbursed for that. You pay some funding to the preschool. It's a safety move.
I've gotten caught with my pants down on Sundays on the ones. Not here, but usually. So, board, I did sign it.
Thank you.
Do you want to review?
The next one is from Silvernet. It's a facility design form for the fiber optic design. So your signature just confirms that the setup would be as such. So if you take a look at that, Guilford decided to be part of this. So you probably just need to confirm that that's
What we're getting?
that's what the design plan is. While Dan's looking at that, I'm going to distribute a copy of the board self-assessment survey. And I would say at a future meeting, we should take some time, you can get a chance to look at this. Maybe at the next meeting, we'll have a chance to review it. So we have a copy for each.
Is that the results from what we did?
Yeah, we compiled the results.
Okay, so that's what I want to make sure.
Thank you.
So I believe there are 4 board members and 2 administrators. So let's give you a chance to take a look at it, and then we'll review it next time. And then lastly, every other year, the board does my evaluation. We just want to take a moment to speak about this.
Okay.
Yep. Report card.
Ron, when do we have to have this in by?
What's that?
When do we have to have this in by? Can I hold this so we can have a grounds meeting with Troy?
Sure. Yeah.
I just want to go through it with Troy and the grounds.
Yep.
Because there is some core drilling and placement of the, I think that would be wise
Yes,
before we
I
signed
agree.
it. John, you okay with that? We can have a building and grounds? Yeah.
Okay, so if we just take a moment on my evaluation. So you see the factors there, WSESU goals, relationship with the board, staff relations, education and leadership, business and finance, personal qualities and community relations. You see the ratings scale there, 1 through 5. And then attached is my job description in each one of those areas. And so what typically is done is individual board members will do the rating comments. And then I would ask you to get it to the board chair by the next meeting. And then what happens is he gets it to our office, and then it gets collated into one document. That'll give me a chance to take a look at it with you as a board and talk about comments and concerns and issues and whatever. What happens after that is each individual board district goes, they do the same thing, and then it gets all compiled into one document. And then the SU Finance Committee will review that, and that's part of the evaluation and compensation process. So if you get that back by December 3rd, whatever the meeting is, that would be great. And that's it for me.
John?
I request an executive session for personnel reasons later on in the meeting. That's 1. 2, the only other item that I have is I want to thank the board. The school board was in the school last Thursday for the entire day. They came in at 8, and they spent the day, they joined classes, they joined meetings, various classes, and then at 2:40, they met with the staff for an hour staff meeting and a direct dialogue between the school board and the staff in terms of what the staff believes the school needs and how the school board sees various issues, including the middle school. So I think it's a testimony to how much these people care about this school, that they took the time out to come here for the entire day. And I don't know of another school board in the area that devotes an entire day to visiting their school. So I want to thank you and applaud you for that.
Thank you, John.
It's a great day.
And the food was good this year.
And thank our new cook.
I did, many times. It was good, very good.
Yes, it's very good.
I actually ate.
I like the lunch
Thanks.
as well. Whole wheat pasta. Lasagna. Basic lasagna.
That's it, John? So we'll put, at the end, we'll do the executive. Clerk's report, approval of minutes.
I move to accept the minutes from November 5th, 2012 as written.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes
You
have it.
did a nice job. Thank you, Renee.
Any
And
communication?
somebody made a request, I just want it noted so that I don't know who to contact to do this, but requested that the minutes and the meetings, the agenda for each meeting, is it on the website before the meeting? I know we post it around town, but is this agenda on the website as well?
Yes.
It is? Okay. So that people know what is coming up well ahead of time. Thank you.
Communications?
I did not get any at all.
Excuse me, on that note,
Yes.
somebody mentioned in the gym about emailing you guys, and I quite honestly haven't been able to find emails for you, email addresses. Like, I thought maybe they would be on a website or something, and if they are, tell me where they are, and if not, I don't think the public can.
Right on school board, if you looked up school board, I think my email's right on there.
On the WSESU?
Names.
If not, we can put
Well,
them.
I'll double check, but I,
If they're not, just call me, I'll give it to you.
I'll contact Barb and ask her, okay?
yeah, I was just curious, because I hadn't been.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I just assumed it was on the website.
Any other? Any unfinished business? Friends of Music at Guilford.
Procedurally, I'm actually here. Katie and I are here together. You can't tell. So I would maybe have to ask for permission for this, but since almost everyone else here is obviously here for the middle school issue, and I'm going to talk about spaghetti and music, I'm perfectly happy to do that with everyone here, and I'd be happy to have them know about it. But if the board wished to do so and wanted to switch this with the discussion that obviously most people are here for so that some people can go home, that's okay with me. And I know you're staying for the other part.
Anybody object to that?
How long are we talking, Don?
You know.
It's a whole different time zone.
Who knows me here? How brief I tend to be.
I think there was a 5-minute rule, though, right?
5-minute rule? Well, I must spend.
I don't think you're going to take up that much time.
Okay, so it was our idea. Our first impulse as to why we approached the board was we're having a fundraiser here, and I know that there's new sentiment about fundraisers in the board and the administration wanting to know who's raising money in the school and for what. And so it seemed like it might be a nice idea, since Friends of Music at Guilford is an outside group, having a fundraiser here in the school, that it might be a good chance, since this is the third annual one, to officially let the board know that we do this. I think informally you probably do. We also had the idea of holding this one. We've had 2 previous ones and had some attendance problems with the second one because of an ice storm. And so Katie and I were brainstorming about what would be a surefire way to get a lot of people here. And she had the really, I thought, cool idea of doing this supper on the same night as a school concert. And we checked with Colleen Hartman, the general music teacher, and we're going to hold this on March 21st, which is a Thursday night, from 5 o'clock to around 6:30, which is the announced starting time of the K to 7 concert. The idea would be piggybacking one on the other, and hope we get a lot of families here who will come to the supper and then go on to the concert. And so we wanted the board and the administration to be aware that we were doing this, and with the blessings of the music teacher, since it's her event that we're piggybacking on, and she thought that was fine. And that brought up the fact that I have never approached, and so this is I think that's all I need to say about the spaghetti supper, unless you want to know more about the menu or stuff like that. But I'll let my
No, I was going to say that the money raised funds the program that takes place. It's an enrichment program that takes place.
Right. I was going to talk then briefly about the program itself. This is the function of this event is to raise some of the funds needed for the Friends of Music's music enrichment program that happens here in the school. And a thing that I'm very proud about, having been a school board member and been involved a lot with finances, is that this is a program that we have been able to sustain, even at a rather modest level, without any impact on the school budget itself. And so the whole point of it is that the funding to bring these programs into the school is private. It's privately raised. Friends of Music foots the bill and then hopes to raise enough to at least break even, which so far, in fact, hasn't actually happened. It's always been a few $100 short that Friends of Music has taken on. And it occurred to me once again that since we were coming to the board to just tell you about the supper a little bit and why we're having it, that I've never made a presentation to the board about this program, and the board might officially be interested in knowing what it is we do. You might even have a question, I don't know. But for 5 years now, actually starting with the 2008-9 school year, Friends of Music has been bringing music residencies into the school and some other small programs as a supplement to the music program. And one of the very rewarding things is that both music teachers have been not only very supportive, but they have sat in on the sessions and attended the fundraisers, and it's been great to have that symbiosis, because I well know that there are teachers who perhaps want to have control of what goes on in their discipline, and it's great that they're so open to the fact that we're bringing in something a little bit different from what they're doing. The key thing we've been doing is bringing Todd Roach, who lives in Brattleboro, who is an amazing educator. Probably, I would go so far as to say, probably the most skilled educator with adolescents that I've ever worked with or had contact with. He's got astonishing interpersonal skills with the kids, not least because he coaches sports. He grew up, he always likes to tell the kids he played football until college, and only suddenly at that point decided that music was something that interested him. And the kids always respond to that because he's able to say, this is just something I chose to do, and now here's what I'm doing, but you can kind of do all these things. And he also has just a lot of background working with middle school age kids. And so a lot of music programs that come into schools are, you plunk down some musicians, they play a couple of pieces, the kids sit there sort of squirming, and then that's the experience. And that can be okay, but what he does is a lot more involving, and he really gets kind of on their side, which is really cool. He started by coming in on his own, doing drumming workshops, and those worked quite well. And then we decided to branch into multi-day residencies, and what we've been doing for the last couple of years, and what we intend to do again this year, is a 3-day residency where he and a group of musicians he works with who include several other very skilled educators, come in and spend a couple of full days with the kids, so they have multiple contact times. And he gets them over the course of just a few hours playing these very interesting rhythms and playing an entire piece to the point where they can go and perform it for a bigger group. The transformation of these kids when they just kind of shuffle in saying, I'm not sure why I'm here, to that has been pretty amazing for me to witness, and I have been sitting in on all of them. What they do is a lot of ethnic music, world music, so-called. They've done a lot of Brazilian stuff, Middle Eastern, Indian. One of the members of the group is a leading expert worldwide in classical South Indian vocal music, which is a very special discipline. And she has gotten these kids to sing along with her, doing these very weird scales that are not our Western scales. So they're exposed to, it's once again, it's one of the great things when you can not only hit the music discipline, but bring in cultural stuff. There's also a lot of found instrument stuff. One of the guys in the group last year came in with a big marimba-like thing that he had simply made out of different lengths of 2x4s, and which produced a gorgeous tone. And he said, you guys could get us, a saw and go to the lumberyard and build yourselves one of these things. The year before, he had didgeridoos, which is an Australian instrument, which he had built a whole bunch of out of PVC pipe. Once again, just found stuff, these amazing transformations. And we've had great experiences with this, and the funding for it, as I say, has come from all sorts of places. We've got a small grant from year to year that's paid for about half of these residencies. And the reason for the spaghetti supper was to get the school community to help support it, but once again without taxpayer involvement. We also have a run-out concert that takes place the final night of the residency. The musicians perform a concert in Brattleboro, which is a public concert, and so that helps support it even more. 2 years ago, we got a bunch of the kids who were in the program to come to Brattleboro, and I know you had a representative there. And was that great? And
It was so fun.
the group played a whole evening of music, and then they brought the kids up, and they did a samba, which was really exciting and very intricate, and involved a lot of learning that had just happened over the last 3 days. And it was great for the kids because they got to go to Brattleboro and be in the Hooker Dunham Theater, where there's a paying audience, and they were up on stage. And it's part of that thing I like to do, which is bridging those gaps and breaking down barriers, because a lot of people think, oh, you're a musician and I'm a regular person. And the idea is to make people realize that everybody can be a musician, and in fact is one. And last year it turned out there was a basketball banquet the night that we hoped this was going to happen. And I kept muttering and saying, I never even heard of eating basketballs, but it turned out to be a really important thing. And every kid in the middle school, not just the basketball, they all went. But luckily, when we found out this was going to happen, this ensemble usually gives, first thing in the morning, one of the mornings, they give us a concert for the whole school. We tend, by the way, I didn't mention, we've been working primarily with middle school kids in this program, but they give a concert that includes everybody, comes into the gym and sits on the floor. And luckily, we were doing that the last morning of the residency, and so we got the idea, since the kids wouldn't be able to perform in Brattleboro, we decided to include them in the all-school concert, which turned out to be a revelation to everybody. And the ensemble played one or two pieces, and then we brought up the middle school kids, and they played along with the professional musicians for the rest of the cohorts, that is kindergartners, staff, and so forth. And that, once again, was suddenly a very exciting thing for them to perform for their peers, and to do music that was really fascinating. So we want to continue to do that and do that again. So cognizant of your evening here, I think I've probably said what I want to. Oh, I have some pictures for you guys. I also have, if anybody wants to see it, I have a budget, which you probably don't care about, but I'm very transparent when it comes to money.
We do.
And if you want,
you're part of the school. We do.
It's not your budget, but I've made 2 copies for you. If anyone really cared, which I can't imagine they would. This is
the school's part of it.
This is a budget. This is a budget for the project. And by the way, I'm retired from Friends of Music, but I've held on to this one assignment, which is to run this program, partly because I think no one else would do it if I weren't. And I'm in kind of an interesting position because of my involvement both with Friends of Music and my long involvement with the school. I should mention very quickly that we've also brought in other small things. And last year we brought in 3 a cappella groups from BOHS just to perform for the 5th through 8th grades here in the cafeteria, like a half-hour gig where each group talked about what they do. And all 3 of these groups are self-formed and self-governing. They're not part of the BOHS curriculum, which makes it, I think, particularly interesting. They get together, they police themselves, they audition each other, they make their own arrangements, and they come out with some really cool pop kind of a cappella stuff. Each group was very different. One was very edgy, one was kind of mainstream. And one of the things I really like about that is that we're introducing, particularly the 8th graders here, to things they could be doing at the high school. And what better way to get them interested in stuff they could be doing there than to have actual students coming here and saying, you know, if you're interested in this next year, look us up, you know. And I'm suspecting that 1 or 2 of the kids last year are probably already edging to get into those groups. They were real excited. So what we also want to keep trying to do is just bringing small, inexpensive, or free things into the school in addition to these residencies. And I'm just going to keep working on that, and you know, and see what else we can kind of get in here. But it's been a really cool program, and it's a good example of what you can do with no money, basically.
Is the spaghetti dinner? Do you have the spaghetti dinner and then you have the concert?
In this case, I'm not actually sure. We still actually don't have a date for the residency this year, so we're talking about somewhere.
When you have the spaghetti dinner?
Oh,
It's a
it's a school concert.
Right.
Right before the right.
Right. I was saying, I was asking.
Yes.
When you have the spaghetti dinner,
Yeah.
it's the fundraiser.
Yeah.
And there's the concert.
It's 5 to 6:30 at the dinner, and then from 6:30 on, it would be the concert, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So
And the concert in question has no particular relationship to this program.
Right.
It's Colleen's general music concert.
Right.
But we
I'm
like.
just thinking tied in with the community.
Yeah,
Okay.
we like.
Bear with me for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just making a suggestion.
Yeah.
You would maybe or probably get more people involved if it was a shorter window of time. So say you have the spaghetti dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to do it as 2 different things, spaghetti dinner and then there's a concert.
Yeah.
What if you had the spaghetti dinner and the concert, you kind of geared the concert as you went on through the spaghetti dinner. So if you're eating, the concert relates to softer music.
It's not a concert that's a musical group that's coming in. It's the school kids. It's a part of their curriculum.
I know, but if the 2 parties met as a community, you could kind of gear it so you were having dinner and the concert was going on and you had a nice flow. I'm not really artistic by interest in weeds, but I'm just thinking as a parent that, all right, I'm going to go to this because I'm going to be part of the community.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a dinner. I'm also going to be part of the concert, and I'm not going to be there until 9:30 at night. And I can do this in a 2-hour span.
That's what it is.
We actually talked about seeing if the concert could be a little bit later, but this is a K to 7 concert. There are a lot of young kids, so Colleen really wants to start at 6:30, and so we.
It's in the gym, and then the.
Now we get a fair number of members of the public who are not school families or parents too, which is certainly part of the idea is that we want anybody to come in and have spaghetti and help support this program. And in fact, the more people not connected with the school who do that, the better, because we're getting them to help support us and having a nice supper. And by the way, we have very good menu. I don't know if you've been to spaghetti suppers, but we have good meatballs.
Homemade sauce, not just your canned stuff.
Yeah, and we have done a pretty good job with this, and we've had some great parent volunteers who have worked on it, and I'm sure will again.
I'm just throwing out an idea.
Yeah, we actually have talked about wouldn't it be kind of fun during the supper to have some kind of music thing happen. And in fact,
something.
I've tried to get Todd to come, and he always has a conflict, but to get him to come and just stand up and do 5 minutes of drumming while people are eating or something, just to,
Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah.
It's pretty huge. I greatly appreciate it.
it's a rewarding thing to work on. Like all things that you do with kids, when you think about it ahead of time, you go, and then you go in and do it, and it's like doing Four Winds, which I do. You know, you always feel like, oh, do I really want to go do this today? And by the time you're done with the class, you just feel great. And that's the same with this program. You see the stuff happening. And one of the things you'll see a photo there of is we took the school chorus, a little minor thing we did last year was we took the school chorus to Guilford Sound, which is a state-of-the-art, phenomenal facility right here in Guilford, recording studio. Dave Snyder, who runs it, was very welcoming. And we took a school bus and took the school chorus, and they were there for about 2.5 hours, and they recorded their repertoire with state-of-the-art equipment that is the same as the equipment that's used by the top pop singers in the world. That's how good it is. And there was also a trio of 3 girls who had their own little group that they had generated their own repertoire. And after the big group was done, they got to cut a track. And it was so exciting. One of the girls said to Colleen, "This is my birthday present." Colleen said, "When's your birthday?" She said, "It's not until next July, but this is my present." I mean, they were just so excited to get to go into this gorgeous place and do a number of takes, you know, and then he brought some copies of the CD to the school. And so once again, it just, any kind of connection. I'm a big connection between school and community person. That's one of my big things. I don't like the idea that there's this little wall. And, it's
We're trying to break it.
one of my missions. Yeah. So I didn't want to take even that much time, but I thought we've been doing this for about 5 years, and that we'd never officially said to the board, "Oh, by the way, there's this program," and thought it would be reasonable to let you know and have you ask us things if you want. And come to the spaghetti supper. You know when it is now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Doc.
sure.
Bus drivers, custodian contract.
Something here.
Yeah, well,
I know.
just wanted to see if they. John never. Budget.
I knew I'd throw some of it away.
Jim put together a draft budget that we just disseminated.
I'm sure you will. I'm going to drive very carefully.
Got backup information.
Okay.
As far as any discussion, probably shouldn't be discussion tonight. This is just your information.
Green, thank you.
In executive.
Thank you. Good night.
I
Bye.
would say just take it home and just
Thank you.
I know you have my phone. Am I?
Oh, don't be going with those.
Oh my gosh.
It'd be a long walk home.
That would be rough.
I'd get you that. I wouldn't make you hitchhike out here.
How you doing?
No,
Troy.
Yes, Mr. Sisto.
So, do with the bus driver custodial contracts,
Yes.
we need to talk about that in executive amongst the board. The committee, Penny and I have talked about it, but we need to talk to the total board
Okay.
on that.
You got a time frame for us? Because you had that paper for 6 weeks. And just acted upon
That's
last
tonight.
week.
That's tonight.
Hold up before you go off the deep end.
I'm not going off the deep end.
Okay.
I handed it to you on the 15th of
Yes,
October.
and I've already approached you and you have not.
We're waiting on you guys.
No, what was the conversation we had? Let's back up
That
here.
you and Dan have already talked.
Yep,
And you
and
said
what
you was
did
going
we
to talk
like?
to the rest of the board this week. Correct?
Okay,
Correct?
kind of correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if you remember right, the other part of it was we wanted actual numbers, not a listing of cost of living adjustments.
I don't want to discuss this on the floor. This should be an executive session.
I understand that, but I'm just telling you, so you didn't do
Don't-
your part either, is what I'm saying.
No,
we have given you what our negotiations. We've started this with the board.
Calm down.
Right?
Calm down.
No.
But
I sound rough, but I just got done tearing the gym down.
I know, but we have plenty of time. The contract doesn't end until June. Is it on?
Yeah, but he's right. I mean, I'm going
It's got to be.
go there with
I want to get my numbers in to the principal and everything like that.
We have to go through the process to do it. So it has to go through executive decision this meeting, as we said last week. So.
Well, that's why we was here. If he was going to talk about it in executive session, we wanted to be part of it.
We are going.
It was on the agenda, so we assumed.
We assumed that it was going to be brought up.
Well, we are going to.
We are going.
Okay.
But it's an executive decision.
It's executive session, so typically you two, which are on a committee, would need to verse the whole board before you have a meeting with the bus drivers.
Yeah, that's not how it's put on the thing there. So.
I see it on the agenda, but quite frankly, they need to have some discussion in executive session before they start going back and forth. So, I mean, for tonight, it sounds like you two need to verse the full board and then respond to the drivers.
So that'd be a second executive session.
Yeah, so that actually it shouldn't have been on the agenda.
Well, that's why we was here, because we seen it on the agenda and.
So that was our mistake. We should have pulled it off the agenda because we weren't ready. And I apologize to the committee. I mean, you guys.
Thank you.
We should have pulled it off the agenda.
Okay.
Which.
Well, we probably should have just warned it as, executive session.
Yeah, but on the bottom it should have been
Yeah.
that. So they would have known that we were talking about it. It wasn't, right.
Yeah.
It didn't involve them. And we pulled them from their lives.
Okay.
What, are you going to stick around because we still building and grounds?
When do you want to do that? You want to do it now?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Report? Sorry, Rita.
Thank you for coming.
She was here anyway.
As of today, we received our first oil delivery of 2,834 gallons. The building is warm. I've had some more contractors come in. I'm waiting on bids, as you guys requested.
For the painting?
Painting and windows.
Yep.
And the kitchen alcove area.
Okay.
Other
Did
than that,
we get any comments on the alcove? Just for what other, thanks, Cindy.
Not right out. The other contractors looked at them, and the one contractor looked at it and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it was, he says, yeah, it's been here since I went to school here, so I'll leave it like that. Well, that's building and grounds.
No, it's building and grounds.
That's what they're talking.
But other than that, everything's running fine. Yard cleanup's been going on.
Okay.
Just getting ready for winter.
And how's our road holding up?
Doing good. I've got another contractor, the one contractor that came in with that astronomical amount, there's another person from that company coming to reevaluate it.
Redo that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I already put the 2 calls up to the other 2 people, and I haven't got any response from them yet.
That's strange. To each his own. And then we'll get together with John Troy, another building and grounds meeting. We got to go over that sovereign. They want to come inside the building. I just want to review it with you first.
Okay.
So
Well, I've got everything what the gentleman from central office, I believe his name is Gary. Like, what's Gary's last name? Your IT. Yes. He's been in. He's told me what I had to do thus far, and with the guys from Sovereign, which was just put in 2 4-gang outlets, one in the teachers' lounge and one down in the electrical room down there in the gym. So
I think it would be in our best interest if we all met and made sure we're on the same page before I put my signature on that.
That would be good. I mean, like got deep pockets.
I've got a question for either Troy or Dan, I don't know which one. Asbestos, what's going on with that?
That's in the board's hands.
So.
What do you mean by that?
What, are we waiting on bids?
Keep that going,
I was
John.
gonna say, I haven't heard about it.
Ron can actually answer it better than I do.
Well, Jim Kane just told me today that he's going to get some good information out next week.
Okay.
Right. Any other?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the asbestos project that you're getting bids on? Entire school? Section of school?
Sections, different sections, right, Troy, as we talked about?
Different
Yes. Different plans to, bring to the public.
Okay.
Because
Based
there's-
on the discussion last year?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Just following through on what we,
Sure, so it's informational?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Not
And it's
action.
broken down in different sections of where, if the
Is there
if
also
the
a
town
bell
would like to
system
take-
of not touching it and what the benefits
Oh,
are?
that's what we've been told for
Very
years.
good. Okay, because there's
But there are
There's
people
many-
in this community that want
I understand.
it taken out, and we're getting information on how much that would actually cost.
So these are a whole lot longer than.
I know.
Any other new business? We just have the committee report, building and grounds, finance.
That's probably because right there.
Thank you, Jandy. Bye.
It's not really this.
Well, that's what it says.
I know.
Well, why don't we put it, is that what they're?
I'm going to distribute the budgets just for your review. And as Jim Kane said, that he has backup information and he needs to get to you next week. So probably at your next board meeting, that's the time to have some discussion about this.
Thank you.
Right. My only comment to this is when Barb's writing this up, we should probably word this. If we know at central office that we're just going to review this, we should probably not put
Discussion.
Yes.
So here's the issue. Jim Kane is getting like the UHS budget out for over town, Guilford, Vernon. He just did not have enough time to get the backup information that would warrant a discussion. So it's just the timing of this.
Right, but in
I think
future,
it's
I think
a little too early anyway to be starting this.
Yep.
Quite frankly. I think he wanted to get it out here as quickly as possible. So by the time this was born, which was last week, his intent was to get you the whole package.
But I just want to be, if we're asking people to attend, I just want to make sure we're not blowing smoke,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they get here and it's like we're not having the discussions. Just want to be clear. Approval of warrants. Any other? Are you guys here for more middle school conversation?
It might be good to talk about the implication of the vote that happened and what you're thinking in terms of.
I would love someone to
process.
explain that to me. I'll be completely honest. I'm more baffled now than I was a week ago, so I'd love someone to explain this to me. I'm very confused. Does somebody want to take the floor and explain?
I mean, I've heard a couple of things. In what I've heard, and Don corrected it, but the fact that a no vote, the board intent was to have further discussion about this topic, whether to build into the budget or not. And if you decide as a board to do that, then it's going to come before town meeting for discussion on that article. So I don't know what was in the heads of people that voted, but I clearly heard some people wanted to have more discussion on it as opposed to just an Australian ballot vote that wouldn't lend itself to discussion. So it might be good to hear from people that voted to give you a sense of how they felt. I mean, Matt made a point that you'd prefer discussion on the floor as opposed to an Australian ballot.
Yeah.
Educated decision.
I think it was a little confusing to even figure out where to stand on it, because as everyone here pretty much knows, I'm a major anti-Australian ballot for the budget person. And we've been through this twice at recent town meetings. And, I felt strongly that the dynamics of the floor meeting is a wonderful democratic tool for dealing with something that is in fact fluid, which is to say, with the budget, you can approve it as it is, you can increase it, you can decrease it, you can play with it, and that's why I like the floor vote for the budget. For this, it seemed to me it's a little different because it's a permanent change. I think we all agree if this change were to be enacted, it would probably last for as long as we could imagine. And it's a big issue that there's a lot of feeling about, but it was a yes or no, so it seemed to me this was a more appropriate type of issue to be decided by Australian ballot, like a bond issue, which is always done by Australia, and that it's you know, you get all your info and then you make a decision. And the discussion at town meeting wouldn't be to mold the legislation. It would still just be more information, and there are other ways of getting information, which is all the meetings that people could be coming to that you were talking about. So I think the interesting thing about this tonight was that there was no particularly clear delineation between who was supporting one versus the other. It wasn't, a liberal conservative. It was interesting. I think a lot of people who probably agree on almost everything were on opposite sides of it. That Matt's point, for example, which is I really want to talk about it and then vote on it. And I think on the other side, people saying I really want to see a lot of chance for participation of people on something that's important. And you as a board wanting perhaps to have a real record of that decision, which you get with the Australian ballot. Whereas at the floor meeting, you have 10 people leave the room to go to the bathroom, and the vote comes out different, which I've seen happen here. A couple of people leave the room, and the vote comes out differently if they hadn't left, and so you have that sort of there's more of a feeling of sureness about an Australian ballot decision. So I don't know if it obviously didn't mean anything. The closest to the vote, to me, said this meeting was sort of irrelevant, except I'm a friend of mine who used to be on the Brattleboro board described herself as a meeting junkie, and we both agreed with that. Described both of us. We like to go to meetings. So, But other than that, it was pretty indecisive.
I guess for me it became baffling. There was a man that had said something out on the floor tonight about he wanted informational meetings or how is he going to find out about this issue. And I guess, being as naive as I am, this is quite the learning curve. I keep thinking the more you talk about it and the more you bump into people and the more that you participate in things, the more people you reach, and then they have a conversation with somebody and it becomes a topic of interest and you talk about it. And I'm finding that that's probably really not the case, so maybe I'm just a little more naive than I thought I was. I started to get confused because for me, the Australian ballot, that vote was, did you want it, does everybody want to vote on it or not? Not really, I guess, in my mind, was everybody voting on, are the kids going to BAMS or are the kids staying here? So I got very confused tonight during this whole thing because I thought it would be an open discussion that we'd be having for many months to come. I was surprised, in fact, when that man had said the comment about, so we're not going to talk about it till the floor meeting, and I would think that whether we have an Australian ballot or not, we're just going to keep holding open sessions for anybody that wants to come and participate and talk and get new ideas and new ways to look at it, because the best way to make a good decision is an informed one, and that's really getting a lot of opinions and a lot of thought processes for me. So I was a little confused because I was like, oh my goodness, these people aren't going to wait until the week before town meeting to come to pre-town meeting and be like, this is when we're going to actually become informed of this topic. That scared me to death.
now I can start to understand people that I've heard in the last few weeks when this discussion, what's the rush? Why do you guys want to do this on the next? Because I wasn't thinking it was rushing until I heard those kind of comments, you know. Really, would people really be waiting till the last 30 days before you're going to vote on an issue like this to really start learning about it? Shocking to me, but not that I don't understand it, but shocking to me. And so then I thought, are we rushing this whole topic? I mean, I didn't feel that we were until I started to hear these kind of random comments, and I guess that's what I'm looking for. I mean, do people think that we're rushing this? Do people think... I'm not sure how to reach people to even get them to be concerned about the topic, is I guess the bewilderment I'm living through now.
This hasn't been the first time.
Well, I understand that, but it doesn't matter how many times we've talked about it. It's what is the public thinking, and that's
my concern is you vote for a president basically on Australian ballot, correct?
Right.
So, same theory. If you want to know about the issue, you're going to go find it, correct? Okay. Right. 2, 90% of the floor people at the town meetings are not parents with students in the school. That's disturbing to me. When you're voting on, number one, the budget for a town, for a school, and the parents really don't, because they're working, don't necessarily take the day off. They don't come to it. I mean, there's a certain amount that come to it, and that still bothers me on the town budgets, even for the town. We have changed as a society. So how this all comes about is, what can we give our students at the Guilford school? And they both said, BAMS came to us and did a big presentation. Guilford has come and give a presentation on their end of it. So as a board, you have to take a look at how can we better educate our children and give it back in these meetings to the community so they can understand. And this has been going on for months and months.
But I understand what you're saying, Dan, but I'm feeling bewildered now because I'm thinking, you know, we've been talking about this a really long time. We've done a lot of research. We've done a lot of reading. We've tried to look at the impact of the town. We've tried to look at the impact of the tax dollar. I mean, there's many things, and I completely agree. The other night we had listened to a woman stand up and say, "Look, we vote for you guys because that's your job. We put you there." And I personally, I thought that was a really great way of thinking of it. But I think for a topic like this, it's very overwhelming for 5 people to make that kind of thing. We really want a lot of input. And, you know, we can all, as a school, I mean, anybody knows, you know, you send out surveys, you know, you get a quarter of the people who actually fill them out and respond. You hold meetings and you hope that people come and talk. You corner people in the grocery store, and you know, I mean, I'm to the point now where people see me coming and they head for the next aisle, and I can't blame them. But for me, it's because I'm trying to gain knowledge of what people are thinking. It's not to put them on the spot or any of that. And so I guess what I'm saying is this something of how do we go about getting the town more involved? So,
well, can I want to say that I really appreciated your statement, the board statement, saying that we wanted the Australian ballot because we wanted to be more informed about what the community thought. And then I really appreciated what Matt said, too, because it was the timing that seemed, I don't know, a little awkward to me in terms of that Australian ballot and you're voting on a budget, and I'm not sure how that process works. So I'm just, then again, back to what Penny's saying, how do you get that information about what is the community feeling? What is the sense of the community? Can we do that prior to making a budget or prior to town meeting? Or is that what you're looking for?
I think there will now be a lot of discussion. Obviously, it's come up in a much larger way than it had in the past. And I can kind of explain the psychology of those who weren't aware of it before and saying, oh, where's this all coming from? Because that's how I felt 2 months ago before I started attending meetings. And I can also explain about the idea of the representative versus being at the meetings. The tendency, at least in me, and I'm going to talk about myself, is to feel that a school board, and this may be wrong, but that a school board generally is keeping pretty much the status quo and watching over things and working on keeping things working, you know. And there may be, you know, new initiatives and things, but in general, to chop off a chunk of the school is not the kind of thing that I would think normally goes on in a school board meeting. And once I learned that that could happen, then I started coming. Also, I kind of was distanced from a school board because I didn't really know what happened in a school board or whether the public was there normally. I mean, it's ignorance, basically, but that's basically how I felt. And now I understand what goes on and why it's important to be here and stuff. So the sense that representatives, you know, the idea that you guys are going to be maintaining the quality of education and things like that is just a kind of sense, but it doesn't mean that I would think that you could just make big changes all of a sudden without us participating in it. And I don't think you do, so I'm just saying that that's the psychology of it. I think we will see a lot of discussion now. I think we'll really get a good idea of what the community wants. I mean, I think obviously it's not going to go away, and I think that now it's really positive. I also think that the timing is going to be good for it if it does come to pass. I think we'll have the time to approve a budget. I think we'll have the time to first weigh in opinion. So I think that it's a good thing for either side of this issue. You know, all of us are passionate about it. All of us believe certain things. I'm sure that all of us are really concerned about the education of our children. So I think it's a good thing, personally. I'm glad that it's not going to be killed. I really do want the community to decide what to do with this issue, and I hope that you will press forward with it. I mean, even though I might favor keeping the middle school here, I really would like the overall community to weigh in on what they feel.
I know there's some people in this room that we had a meeting at the Grange that Lisa Ward was nice enough to host. And only 2 of our school board members could go because the reality is that, you know, it would have had to have been a warned meeting if there was more than 2 of us there. Another thing where, you know, that you become very naive and then you get your eyes open. I was devastated by the end of the meeting because I was looking at it as a meeting to let's really start comparing what's going on, and because it's such an emotional issue for so many people, it's hard to get there. Do you understand what I mean? It's hard to get that conversation. I thought Alice had made a great point that night that it really does need to be more of a school board thing. Even though I loved the forum of just the open conversation, the problem that happens is then you have nobody that kind of reins it in of, we're not here to slam one or the other. We're not here. We're here to look at what is offered at places, what could be advantages for children, what do our children need. So I don't know as a board member, and I just want to put this out there, I don't know as a board member if I'd want to be involved in another one of those meetings. Not that I didn't love it, but I understand where Alice was coming from, that in a board situation, first of all 5 of the board gets to hear what people are thinking. Not I come back to the board and tell them what other people said to me. Because, you know, like little kids, you tell the secret and it changes as it goes around the table. Because I do think, I mean, I don't know how this is all going to go, but I sit there and I deeply think that at some point, I mean, serious decisions have to be made, and we're going to have to come up with a budget, and we're going to have to be, as a group, really be looking at this. So it's really, I don't know how we get more people to give us feedback of what they're thinking, why they're thinking things, because, I mean, it's great when you sit in a meeting and somebody says something that really at first to you is like completely the other side of the way you think, but then when you start to step back, you can, you know, and I guess that's what me personally, that's what I'm looking for, is before we make a huge decision, and that's why I'm just a little worried about the whole timing thing now. So,
That's good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think
confusing and like nobody really knew what was going on or
Which
what
meeting?
the
I'm sorry.
effect.
Which meeting?
This one that we just had
This one.
at 6
Thank you.
o'clock.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if you meant the Grange.
I think
or
it
this
would
one.
have been helpful to have some of the discussion that we're having now ahead of time, even two maybe pre-planned statements saying, if you vote yes, this is what happens. If you vote no, this is what happens. Because I think it was very confusing. We got there and it was like silence. It's like yes or no.
Well, actually, we did that the week before.
No, right, I know, but I'm just saying at the actual meeting, that's how I felt it could have gone better. That being said, it doesn't matter anymore, right? So the vote's done and it's over with, and this discussion I feel like is good, but is not really getting us anywhere. So my question.
It will for town meeting day.
Right,
Yeah.
but so my question now is, what do we do going forward? Like, what's the next step? Do you prepare two budgets? One keeping it, one not, and that's what we talk about on the floor at town meeting? Or do you guys decide what budget you're going to present, and that's what's presented at town meeting? Or where
That's
do we go from here?
exactly why I wouldn't answer on the floor before, because I really don't know. I really don't know at that point what you do. I'm totally baffled.
You have to draft two budgets based on the first question.
I'm totally
But-
baffled.
You as a board is going to have to look at this issue.
Well,
and
depending
have
if it's more
consensus
budget,
on
How
a
to
budget
present it.
or an alternative budget.
It's actually a better
And
system.
the only reason it's come this far is because the cost to send the kids to the middle school in BAMS compared to keeping them here is so close it warrants us bringing it to the town.
But you also haven't completely picked apart that number.
No, because we can't,
So
we
you-
can't do anything until we get firm numbers from the
And that was my
office.
So it could be
consensus
less,
right from
could
the
be more,
beginning.
could be the same, you don't know.
Yeah, but the initial projection was pretty darn close both ways, so.
I just wanted to say that I sense and feel the frustration because I really feel like the town wants input on the decision, the town wants to hash it out, and the townspeople feel rushed and pressured, and we're going to go to town meeting, we're going to make a decision, and then we're already going to have a budget. And that seems kind of confusing, and Dan will say, yes, but we've been talking about this for 10 years. Well, now it's serious. Now it's going to happen or it's not. And there's a lot of variables that we don't even have the facts yet. So for us to be up there and kind of seem like deer in the headlights, like I was, and I still am, and we need to start breaking it down. We need to look at numbers. We need to talk about how we feel, pros and cons, and we need to keep having meetings where we're getting input from you guys.
But it's two separate issues. The budget and bans were two separate issues when it came to the Australian ballot. So now we got to go back to the drawing board and as a board say, okay, one, are we going to pursue it with, if we feel that we want to put it to the floor? Do we give two budgets, or do we just give one budget? Or, like I said before, do we just vote on it and decide as a school board what we're going to do ourselves? Do we want, I'm just throwing out ideas. It's not what, I like to throw a little gas on the fire to get people moving.
Can I just
So I still reserve, as a school board, do we really want to go through all that? And, as you said, you elect officials. And, part of our problem in the government in the world today is that everybody doesn't really get a say. And you elect officials that just, randomly vote on things and don't do a lot of research. Is our board going to do that? I can probably say 100% no. But I'm just letting you know as the public that it's out there. In the red.
Oh,
Lynn.
okay, thanks. Well, I just have quite a little history about this BAMS issue. This isn't something new, which you guys probably know this. This issue has been raised in this town of Guilford for probably close to 25 years anyways. This isn't the first time Guilford voters have come, are going to be going to town meeting and deciding or voting on whether to send your kids to BAMS or not. times are changing, yes, but I think when the people that show up at town meeting come to vote, that's what you have to go with, I think. And I don't know. I just sort of lose track of my thoughts, but anyways.
I'm going to stand up so I can see. In terms of what Penny was saying, I want to back up. The Grange meeting was one of the better meetings I've been to as a parent.
Right.
And I've so appreciated having both of you with your opposing ideas about it, because I came to the first meeting, left with my husband, and we knew where every single person on the board stood about, you weren't there, Tara, just so you know. I'm not saying anything. Where everybody stood about where their opinion about BAMs or not BAMs. But I really liked that meeting because I really felt like a lot of people were heard at that meeting. I felt like I got a lot of information, not necessarily about Australian ballot, but about the issue itself. So that being said, and then the second part about the rush. And is there a precedent? I feel like I've been to town meetings where we have discussed something that is voted on the next year. It's been tabled for the next year. It does feel rushed to me to make a decision for March when you're still all, look, as you said, you're baffled, you're a deer in the headlights. I don't think that's who should be, nothing, obviously you're doing a lot of work, but it does seem like maybe the time is not right away to make a decision like that. So to have it at discussion and then table the vote. It could mean that discussion has to happen all over again and, reinventing the wheel, which sometimes does happen with these kind of things. The third, about being naive, you are, because this happens. I've gone to lots of pre-town meetings. Very few people show up. There are very interesting and very important decisions for the town that have to be made at town meeting, however long, within whatever, the weeks. And very few people show up for that. And that's how it is. That really is how it is. So when you say, I'm just sort of saying, like when you say people aren't coming, or even you're saying people aren't coming to me. That's how it is. That is. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but I think that there is something to that. So the question of having discussion and further discussion with parents, with board, with something being written up, maybe even beforehand, like you had said, and then having a vote, not this March of 2013, but of 14. Is there a reason not to do that? As far as the board goes, is there any...
Yeah, for me it is, because it's how long do you prolong it? Mm-hmm. How long do you beat a dead horse?
Well, wait, but I disagree with that. Meeting a dead horse, we're talking about needing lots and lots of conversation and discussion, so
right,
you could call it beating a dead horse, but...
As a board, and this is where I go back to, all right, we as a board tried as a public to get as much information to the public as we can. And we struggle with it every meeting. How do we get everybody informed, okay? So we've been continually working on that. But it seems to me that even with the school board, like with bands, my thought process, if we brought it to that sort of issue, that gymnasium would be full on tonight. Not even close. Any of these discussions, and everybody keeps coming up, well, we need to let the public know, we let the public know. Well, I'm all for that, but they don't show up.
Yeah, but the reality is... It's going to start happening, though.
No, it's not.
And yes, it is.
I've been here 3 years.
With this issue, it's going to start happening, and they want to talk amongst themselves, and they want to hash it out, and they want to do it in many different
And Dan,
forms.
you have 20 different people at one, and maybe you have an overlap of 8 at the next, and you have 30 at the next. People do have other things that they have to do. I come when issues are important, and in varying degrees. So I don't think that. I agree. It should have been a full gym. I don't disagree with that part of it, but I think to say that everybody who's here tonight are the only people that are interested in that the discussion ends, and it's
8 months
That's
since
20 years. What's going on now?
20 years.
No, I'm talking about, like, pushing it. I mean, we talked about it 3 years ago. You can ask Carol. I brought it up 3 years ago and started having discussions about it. So, to me, it's been 3 years I've been putting this on the table all the time. I've been putting early childhood development on the table each year. Ask John. I keep bringing it up every year, and we keep having discussions about it. So to me, you know, it's not a rush. It's been talked about. It's been, have certain people talk about it? No, I don't believe so. But you know, at what point do you say as a board, we've explored it all? We've done all.
I don't agree. I can't go there with that.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with making decisions so quickly myself, and that's just the way I feel. I mean, just getting this here preliminary tonight and looking at it, I can't even digest it in one night, never mind the next week. As a board member and from Guilford, I really feel confident that I need more time to digest it. But I'll pass off to Matt.
Matt, am I next?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm hearing all this, and this is very valuable for me. And I know I'm a big proponent of being able to hear what people have to say. Let me ask you guys just a critical question, and think about the answer. You've talked about it for however long, maybe 20 years, maybe only 3. In the few years that I've been here, I've heard it come up, I think, a few times. But you got a step closer tonight, I believe. But let me ask you this. How many times have you formally asked us with a vote? Tonight was the first step toward that. Now, we said no. We don't want to do it by Australian ballot. We didn't say no. We don't want to have the conversation. So I think you're personally, and Ron's going to throw a shoe at me if I'm wrong, and I defer to him. But it seems really, it's starting to come into focus for me, and I was unclear just as of before the 6 o'clock meeting. You got to ask the people. Then, if you want to ask the people, and I think you do. I mean, you've said you do. You've tried really hard to. You got to ask us. You got to let us make our bed and lie in it, whatever that is, whether it's an Australian ballot vote or a floor vote. Then I think you got to go forward with a proposal based on what we suggest.
And I don't disagree with you, man. We got 4 months. 4 months is a long time before March.
Well, so just to confirm what Matt was saying, the next step is you've got the budget information. You're going to pick through that. You're going to just have your discussions about the budget and the implications of this decision. I mean, that's going to focus it. And that's really the first time, other than a draft, you know, last year saying, this is what we think the implications will be. Now you'll have some real information.
Concrete information.
And that's
Katie, go ahead.
I feel the issue has 2 really big components to it. And one is a really factual piece, which is statistical, which are real measurable things. And there's the emotional side of it, which is tied to fear of change, which is crippling for a lot of people. And it would be helpful to, one of the things that's been done with big local issues in town in the past has been a town-wide mailing. While it does cost some money for postage and to put out there, if you were able to compile all of the things that you've learned that maybe we don't all know as an audience. I mean, you know the benefits of BAM. I can guess what they are, but you have been educated on that. If there's a way to compile pros, cons, this is how much it's going to cost, this is how much it's going to be more, put some statistics on there so people are educated about the facts, it will help bridge the facts and the emotions to make a really well-informed decision, because I hear a lot of talking, but I don't have anything concrete to base it on. And
Neither do we.
And I was supposed to
But
do
you
a
should.
write-up.
But you should, because you've been the ones
I was supposed to do a
engrossed in
write-up
the
about
matter.
that, but did not feel like I had enough facts, and I definitely don't have numbers.
See, I'm
programs
sorry, Steve, I'm going to jump in here. That's what my biggest, I'm sorry, Steve.
No problem.
That's what I have a hard time digesting right now, is every time I turn around, it's everybody wants to know the number, and I get it. I'm a number person. In fact, I live by that puzzle.
But what I don't understand is how come the conversation at this point, like he said, this is really early to start doing budget talks. The reason this issue came up, and I guess in my mind is what the talking should be right now is, what are the things of Guilford that we love? What are the things of BAMS that they have to offer that we love? Can we do them here, or do we need to have our kids there? It's not even a number issue at this point in my head. No one can tell me how much it's going to truly cost. Let's be honest. We have to figure out what our special ed cost is going to be. There's so many things involved in a budget. But the reality is, before we even got to there, I was assuming we would have the conversation. Is this viable? We look at this community, and I was just in our all-day meeting the other day where we sat with the teachers after school, and I had a staff member say to me, "Well, Penny, there's poverty everywhere." Because a big reason this conversation came up is because Guilford's poverty is rising. Families can't afford to give their kids the extra things, and to be quite frank, BAMS kills us. They have a bigger pool. It is a reality. And so I sat there and I thought, well, yes, other communities do have even more poverty than we have. Those schools already have things in place to do things for their kids. BAMS has a higher poverty rate than we do. But you know what? They have all these programs that no one wants to talk about. And I'm just saying, is that even an interest to the families of Guilford? Do we want our middle school students to continue to stay home for most of the summer if you happen to be a family that doesn't have enough money to send them to camps? Or do we want them to go to the 7 or 8 weeks free at BAMS? Is that something that is a good thing for Guilford children, or maybe not? So I guess for me, I keep hearing this number thing over and over again, but the reality is it's more important than the number. It's what do we want for our children, and I guess I can't ever get somebody to get to that point of the conversation to find out, I understand sports is not important to every single family. I understand that arts and music are not important to every family. But all these different things affect all of these children, and what do they have to offer? As we try to improve K through 6 and what we can give them in this small community, I sit there and I think, well, what are we giving middle schoolers? If BAMS has that, as a parent, I'm thinking they have it down to a science, and we can learn from them for what we can give another whole group of children that live in Guilford. And so for me, idealistic, naive, whatever you want to call it, that was really where the conversation stemmed for me, not the finances. But it does not matter where you are in this conversation. It comes down to everybody. I want to know, is it something that we even want? Maybe we don't. Maybe the community doesn't want their kids to go to BAMS programs after school. Maybe the community doesn't want kids to go to the BAMS summer school programs. And if that's the case, then what we need to be looking at is what improves Guilford then. And I guess that's just my thought. And I know I'm just like going off. Go ahead, Steve.
I think Katie had a good point, is all those benefits that you mentioned, or pros and cons, can still be put in. I think a concrete list written out is really helpful.
You weren't talking about money, Katie, right? You were talking about pros and cons of both.
Yeah. I mean, you could throw the budget in there too, but I think
there's some people that are driven by a budget. That it's not a it's not a for some it's philosophical.
Can we get the last word? I'll let Steve have the last word.
I've been to the last 2.5 months of meetings on this and other subjects, and I'm trying to go to all the meetings, not just for this single issue. But I haven't heard any budget numbers. I haven't heard any projections, even though you guys say you have projections, and one of the reasons you did this is because they're so close and everything, but I never saw those numbers. And I'll tell you right now, I could vote for going to BAMS. I could be convinced of that. I'm not a person who's just going to say one thing. You could convince me, but you haven't. And I've been to the meetings. And the reason is, it hasn't been that concrete. We've discussed things in general terms. I saw the presentation from BAMS. I've heard the teachers from the middle school here talking about what they did here. Both of those things seemed good to me. So it was very difficult for me to say, okay, I'll take one over the other. But what will make a difference to me is what I'm afraid of, okay? And what I'm afraid of is that by removing that chunk of the school, it does drastically affect the rest of the school economically. And it does affect the other school children and what kind of education they have. It's not a numbers thing for me. If this school board asks for an increase in the budget next year, as a person out in one of the voters out there, I will always vote for it. I have always voted for an increase in school budgets. I'm one of those people who does, okay? But I am concerned about this budget and the financial side of this because I don't want it to adversely affect people. And I think in the general tone where we have less money and people are voting, watching their wallets and stuff, I'm afraid that we will have level funding for the middle school once for the rest of the school once the middle school leaves. And with our fixed costs being what they are, we must cut programs for everybody else. And that's one of the concerns I have. If you could address that with specifically and say, here's what it's going to cost, here's where the fixed costs are going to go, and here's where we're going to lose out on 10% of our funding from a grant that depends on the number of students in the school. Things like that. If you show me specifically, then I could be more convinced that this is the thing to do. But I am concerned.
I mean, just to tag on to what you're saying, I think it would be helpful to say, and it could benefit, like this is how it would benefit our K through 6. Like, I hear what you're saying, because you're saying, you're saying like it might affect our K through 6 adversely, where it would be nice to hear if it is benefiting our K through 6.
So we need specifics. I think that's where the specifics come in.
And I know he's supposed to have the last word, but can I have one?
You've been around long enough, Lynn.
Let's see. Educating the people on what BAMS has to offer, or back to what you were saying, Penny, about this is about our kids. What do we want for our kids? And I think when the time you're going to find out what the town of Guilford wants for their kids, I think you're kind of limited. I think it's going to be town meeting. That's when the big discussion, I feel, is going to happen, and they're just not going to come otherwise. It would be nice, but I think that's when you're going to have to tell the people what BAMS has to offer, what we have to offer, and they're going to discuss it. Some's going to be good, and some isn't.
As it always is.
I mean, what people say.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your input.
Let's approve warrant.
Ma'am, can you make sure to sign in so you're listed on attendance?
Here you go. Here's your.
Thank you.
So that people can, that's what I was going to say back to that.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody,
Thanks,
for
Betsy.
coming.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Katie.
Okay.
Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Authorization of warrants for November 19th, 2012. Fast check 1037 for $2,515.67. Fast check 1039 for $300. Fast check 1041 for $662.82. Regular check for 1042 for $12,211.01 for a grand total of $15,689.50. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, are they just normal stuff? Purchase orders?
Yeah, you can't get much. Any other financial? So everybody's gonna go home and do their homework and read this?
Well, we're going into executive session, right?
Yeah, but I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, call to executive session at 8:10. session, and it was over a contractual matter.
And personnel.
And personnel. Sorry. So discussion on the ideal budget.
For a better school, not an ideal school, a better school. Well, I would just like also to take into account something that was said earlier tonight. I believe it was Steve Redmond that said it about as we look at these budgets and things, we want to make sure that we're not costing one group for another group, and I completely agree with that. So if there's things that can be thought of the K through 6 of things that we can improve as well as the middle school and look at that as a whole, excuse me, I would really appreciate that, because I do agree with what he said. I can understand where people are getting nervous that, you know, we're looking at that fix for the middle school, and I'm not even going to say a fix. I think that we're just looking for what is different and out there that can be offered to them. We don't want to cost any of the younger end for that. So as long as we can keep that in mind as we do this budget thing, I would really appreciate
The
that.
whole 10%, if we lose 10%, we lose 10% of funding. You know, we lose 10%.
Yeah.
10% of the kids, then we lose other things if we have smaller numbers.
So I will take those directives and work with those. I ask you to keep in mind as you're looking through those preliminary budget sheets that Jim gave you, that one of those sheets has to do with supplemental staff, and then on the back of that page has some of the staffing that in an ideal situation or in terms of improving the school, that some of that staffing go along with that idea, Tara. So I will be working on this, and then as we come back to our next meeting on December 3rd, I believe is our next meeting, I will be able to speak more fully about it.
Right.
Okay?
Do you all agree that, do you feel like the consensus of people at the town meeting are going to want our kids to stay here?
I don't know. I
My-
really
my
truly
family,
don't know.
From historic, being at historic meetings, that they've always kept them here because they wanted them here. And for many
That's
reasons.
what you thought, though. You thought it, and then you kept hearing numbers, taxes.
Well, it always has boiled down to the almighty dollar, because when it hits somebody's pocketbook, whether it's 32 cents on the dollar or if it's 10 cents on the dollar, they're going to go the lower rate, because if you look at our delinquent taxes now, more and more taxes are being delinquent because people can't afford it. And unfortunately, we all want the higher education as that's why we're here on the school board. But the unfortunate thing is people just can't afford to support the financial part of it.
But the bottom line is.
The bottom line is
If
they
we
want their.
don't increase our budget here to give them what BAMS is offering them, I mean, that's what we have to do. We can't stay at this
Level.
the way we are
We
right
have
now
to-
here.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that we need to up the ante for what our teachers are giving our kids. Is that what you're saying?
I think we need to have a bigger budget to offer more.
Or elective type stuff, not the core.
More special ed, probably more paras.
So you back
the
that
whole
up,
school.
but why would you do that if you could offer the same education?
Well, if the
I think
community wants to keep them here,
which I think there's a core group that is they do feel emotionally like, let's make Guilford better. Let's stay small town community. I think there's a core group that really feels that way.
I'm not
And
saying there isn't,
and if
but-
not, if nobody, and if you've got however many people there, town meeting, and they've got petitions, and they've got signatures, and the people that aren't coming to all these meetings and then finally go, they're going to be easily swayed that way, possibly. I guess we'll just see what people are thinking for the up and coming meetings.
But as I was going to ask John earlier, and I don't know if you want to do it, and you
refrain from it, but, you know, we haven't heard, we've all talked about it, the public's talked about it, but the one running the school on a day-to-day basis, I think is a vital opinion.
I'd like to step in and say I'd rather John answer that if he feels the need to
That's what I said.
when there's an audience, not when it's just the five of us.
But what's your question going to be to him? Even though we can do it another time, but what are you thinking that you want to know from him?
What, as he's trying to develop, what we all been calling the ideal school, what in the future, if it's early education, grabbing a hold of those kids and developing that whole program, or how he feels about the whole process.
Well, he's really spoken a lot about
Project-based.
Dan, I'd say tonight, being 10 after 9, after a power pack meeting, I respectfully decline talking about it this evening. I will certainly be speaking about it in the proposals that I'll bring forth in the upcoming budget meeting. Tara's asked for what I would like to see in terms of the betterment of the school. I'd be able to speak to some of my requests for increased staffing, and we can talk about it in open session in the upcoming meetings.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
What's agenda next time?
Oh, I said
Sorry.
Let's be
Just
cognizant about how we word it.
Budget.
It just says budget.
I mean, I would like to be able to go over what this is and digest it with you
Break it
guys, because
down.
I'm not going to understand all of the wording or what the needs are just by seeing a name and a number next to it.
Yeah.
Right,
Not
but
enough
I like the idea of that we have it, we can now look at it and
Right.
start, and then come up with our questions. So, I mean, I would assume we're gonna have budget talks next time.
Yeah.
And
the
that's
only thing on the
that's
agenda
all
is
I'm gonna
budget.
put on to send to Barb will be,
Budget deliberation.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're good.
I move to adjourn at 9:13.
Second? All those in favor?
Say nobody's jumping.
Aye.
Aye.